Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. This evening, the Bombay High Court rejected all 13 cuts demanded by the Central Board for Film Certification in Udta Punjab. Only one cut, volunteered by the filmmakers themselves, will be made, and that regards the urinating scene. In addition, the High Court accepted the filmmakers' suggestion for 3 disclaimers regarding drugs, expletives, and the claim the film does not denigrate the state. So is this a great victory for Udta Punjab and a slap in the face of the CBFC? But beyond that, has the time come to relook at the powers granted to the CBFC by the Cinematograph Act and the government's guidelines? Until those are changed, the CBFC could continue to censor. My guests are the well-known director and writer Sudhir Mishra, the well-known actor and director Amol Palekar, the well-known producer Mukesh Bhatt, a member of the CBFC and also a filmmaker in his own right, Ashok Pandit, and BJP spokesperson Shaina NC. Mukesh Bhatt, is the Bombay High Court verdict a great victory for Udta Punjab and a slap in the face of the CBFC? As I said, not one of the CBFC's 13 cuts has been. The only cut is one volunteered by the filmmakers themselves regarding the urinating scene. So is this a victory for the filmmakers and a snub for the CBFC?
Karan, I would refrain myself from saying that there's a victory march in the film industry against the CBFC, but I would say that we are all relieved because what we were seeing of late was the real dark ages where we felt that our freedom of expression, our freedom of thought was getting completely curtailed by the people handling the CBFC. I feel this is a victory for not only us filmmakers, but for the generation next. The young filmmakers who always would have the fear of a watchdog watching them over their head and telling them what they should do or what they should not do. Any country which calls itself a free country cannot impose this kind of blockages in the minds of the people from free thinking. And that was the most disturbing thing.
Contradicts the Supreme Court's verdict in the 1985 Balwant Singh case, where the Supreme Court explicitly said Khalistan Zindabad is not anti-national. But a film that has a young boy shouting Kashmir ki Azadi could be censored on those grounds. So should this guideline be the first thing that's removed? Because it's a lot easier to remove a guideline than to change a parliamentary law.
Yeah, and I totally agree. The Benegal committee will probably do that, and I think the point that Amol was making is really the point, you know, because why is there this discrimination? Why is television allowed? Why is literature allowed? Why is the print media allowed? Why is cinema, you know, somewhere it goes down to British times because it's a kind of a popular medium, that there is this imagination that we affect attitudes. I mean, it's very flattering for us. But I don't know if that's totally true. And even if we do, why stop us? And I think, you know, this is really the whole point where they start behaving in a way where they think that we can affect, and then some outdated views that come in the form of guidelines can totally in the hands of those that are otherwise inclined, you know, and you know, their own prejudices they can impose. I mean, we are in a modern age. What about LGBT rights? You know, where if somebody promotes that in the film or shows the pain of a person like that, somebody may sort of interpret this as obscenity.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, I think this guideline should totally be removed. And I think the only thing, I mean, because censorship itself should be removed.
Absolutely. But censorship, I want to stop you there because I want to slightly widen the discussion with Ashok Pandit. Ashok Pandit, there is an understandable response today to focus the criticism personally and sharply on Prahlad Nihalani. And as chairman of the CBFC, no doubt he carries the blame. But the truth is that the finger may point at him, but it also points beyond him. Surely, the finger also points at the Cinematograph Act that wrongly gives powers to censor. The finger also points at the guidelines. I mean, one of the guidelines, for instance, says dual meaning words are not allowed. I mean, how do you have humor without puns? And yet, technically, puns are not allowed. So, would you accept that the time has come to no doubt hold Nihalani responsible, but look beyond him and say the CBFC is a creature of the Cinematograph Act? That act has to change. It's dependent on the guidelines given by the government. Those guidelines have to change. The finger points beyond Nihalani. Would you agree?
To a certain extent, Karan, yes. But the point is here, as far as Mr. Nihalani is concerned, all these things were misused. Nowhere in the guideline it is said that you can't use the name of cities and states. Nowhere in the guideline is written that you can use these 20 cuss words and you can't use those 150 cuss words. The problem here is that a person, when he sits on this chair, whosoever he is, I'm not talking about him only, he starts becoming a professor. He starts becoming a teacher. He starts, thinking that he is a person who's going to change the entire language of Indian cinema. He is going to change the feel of the entire country, and he will decide what film people are going to say. So this arrogance changes your entire style of functioning, and you become totally blind towards rationally thinking of allowing certain things to happen. There are a lot of things in the books, there are a lot of things in the laws here and there, but a person takes a call as per the situation is concerned, refers to things on a different platter, and then sees to it that the correct things goes out. That is the basic problem. And I totally agree to what Amol Palekar and Sudhir ji is saying, that if tomorrow, whatever the worst possible things, we see riots, we see killings, we see a lot of things on news channels. So if this is allowed, on news channels, on television, everywhere, then why not cinema?
Absolutely.
It's as good as that. Why are we the scapegoats of the entire law of this land?
Shaina, let me bring you in, because what this discussion is clearly suggesting is that you need a root and branch rethinking, radical and transformative, about the way films are treated. It's not just a question of changing the people who are appointed to the CBFC in the hope that better people will behave preferably. It's not, it involves changing the very powers that the Cinematograph Act gives. It requires changing the guidelines the government gives to interpret those powers. You need a thorough root and branch, transformative, radical change.
That's precisely the point. That is precisely the point. And if you've heard Mr. Arun Jaitley's statement, or even Mr. Rathor's statement, and the filmmakers on your panel itself will hold this valid, that they have always interacted with the entire film fraternity, because we believe that this creative expression must be expressed without any kind of interference, and least of all from the government. So for those who have been slapping this intolerance argument on our face, I only want to say, if we were interested in intervening, why would we have a stalwart like Shyam Benegal's entire report, which
are you giving me a commitment that you will fulfill what Mr. Benegal recommends? Are you giving me a commitment that you will fulfill what he recommends?
Yes, and I'm also giving you a commitment on your channel that all the filmmakers who feel that there are other changes that should be brought about through the I&B ministry, we are very welcome to discuss with them, deliberate with them, and come up with a conclusive suggestion which is in the interest of all. I think that we need to understand that we have never opposed this film, and we have only made a statement that the drug menace
we're running out of time, but I want to end on that positive note. You've given me, you have some very important producers, directors, writers, actors, Amol Palekar, Sudhir Mishra, Mukesh Bhatt and Ashok Pandit, all listening to you, and I'm repeating what you said. You've given me a commitment on this program that you will fulfill the recommendations of the Benegal Committee, and beyond that, you've given an invitation to these gentlemen and to the rest of Bollywood that they
Yes.
must come to you, that they can share their concerns,
Yes.
give their recommendations, and you will seriously consider them. In other words, and there is Mr. Bhatt applauding you as I
Absolutely.
repeat what you've said. You've given a commitment that you are open to the best suggestions from Bollywood, and I encourage Bollywood to get in touch with Mr. Rathore, with Mr. Jaitley, and now Sudhir Mishra is also now
Truly.
congratulating you, and take up that offer, because we need to cure this situation and do it quickly.
Sure.
My apologies to Amol Palekar. We lost the line to him critically in part
Thank
2,
you.
but my thanks to all my other guests. If you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye, good night.